Dude, it took me 10 years to be like, what am I doing? Like, I'm like, look, I'm making all this money from running this investment group, and I'm spending tens of thousands of dollars every single month, right, on all this other stuff. I was like, no, 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 no. I like, let's just focus on building community.
You're checking out the Investor Shed podcast with Nick Beveridge and Jeremy Kitchen. They're on the path to financial freedom, and they're taking their community with them. Stay tuned for the best free real estate investing advice on the internet. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Investor Shed podcast. My name is Jeremy Kitchen, here with the lovely Nick Beveridge. How are we doing today, Nick?
I just love that you love me.
I just love that you love that I love you, because I think that's mutually beneficial. Is that your love language, Nick?
I have no idea. I got to retake that test.
Speaking of love languages, we have Rob Chevez on the podcast. Awesome episode. Nick and Rob are very similar in a lot of aspects. Both of them run a real estate team. Both of them run a real estate investor meetup. And that's typically what this episode's geared towards. It's geared towards the investor agent looking to start a meetup. So
Yes.
It's a little bit niche, but it's pretty cool. And I think the average investor can still get a lot of takeaway from this. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, that's what Jeremy says. Jeremy says that the average investor can still get value from this, but I got to tell you, this is definitely geared towards real estate agents and finding a new source of business. And we go deep into giving away our magic secrets of starting meetups and just how effective they are for your business.
And the reason why I said speaking of love languages earlier, Rob Chevez, he actually has a vetting process when he's looking for people to partner with and grow his brand, and he uses the 5 love languages, which is really cool. You're going to want to stick around and listen to why he does that.
Yes.
Nick, let's just kind of get started in this. What kind of food should people be eating or consuming for this episode?
This time, I would like you to get your protein in, but you definitely need your fats. So
Yeah, you do.
you're going to need party peanuts, a whole can of them.
You heard it here first on the Investor Shed podcast. Everybody, pause the episode, go to the store because you don't have party peanuts just sitting at your house. Go
Maybe
buy
your
some
neighbor
party
has
peanuts. Maybe your neighbor does.
And they're never home. Just go in.
Yeah, go knock
Go
on
on the
your
back
neighbor's door.
slider.
But you need to create a sense of urgency here. You need to yell and say, I need party peanuts!
I'm coming in.
I'm coming in. I'm listening to a podcast about agent investor meetups, and they'll typically just give you those. So
Yeah.
enjoy.
But likely they're not going to be home, and likely the backslider is always unlocked because those locks, they go
Yes.
bad over time.
Yeah.
Just watch out for the little ankle biters.
Yeah, I mean, a door can be locked, but I've realized over the years, and I know we're gonna get in the podcast, my foot will break about any lock.
We've already lost 60% of our listeners. So for the 40% that are sticking around, enjoy this episode. Here we go.
love you. All right, everybody, welcome to the Investor Shed podcast. Nick Beveridge, how we doing today?
Great. How are you?
Doing great. Hey, we got a really special guest today. We got Rob Chevez on the podcast. Rob, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Appreciate you inviting me in.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to have you here.
Thanks for coming. So I hunted Rob down. Hope you don't mind. I about a week ago, I just started doing a search because I've been doing this network meeting for the last 8 years or so for investors, and I just wanted to see, is there anybody else out there really doing this? And I found this great podcast that you were on, the Real Geeks podcast, and I thought we should just take an episode to deep dive and just go after helping real estate agents out there that are maybe struggling, but they've got a good sense of investing and they want to switch gears and maybe focus on investor clients as their main source of business. Is that okay, Rob?
Oh man, this is my favorite topic. I absolutely love it. Yeah, for sure.
We got the 2 experts in the area on this subject today. This is going to be good. So,
Yeah. So like I said, I've been doing this for about 8 years, but I've been a real estate agent for about 12. I struggled for the first 4 years, just trying to work with your average everyday retail buyer and seller until I just started not really caring anymore and just wanted to meet up with other investors and just kind of dive into that world. And then things started to seem to go well after that. But so I heard that you've been doing this for a lot longer than me. You started doing investor meetups back in 2007 or so, right?
2007. Yeah, it's crazy. Blows my mind. First Tuesday of every month we've never missed since 2007.
That's awesome. So yeah, similar to us, I've been doing it for the first Thursday of each month at 6:30 at my office since February of 2015. Haven't missed it. The only we did
We move it sometimes, right? Sometimes you move it because of holidays and all the rest, but
Yeah, we had two where the doors were closed, and that was because of COVID. But we did it online, and we had people that were able to view it online, and then we were open, I think, back in May or something. But can you tell us, Rob, what gave you the idea to start a meetup, and what I know that you were already an investor, a pretty high producing investor. So what gave you the idea to go all in with meetups?
a couple things actually, and I would say it's only been recently where I've decided to really go all in, like really go all in. But and you would think that maybe I did go all in because I've been doing one every single month since 2007. Think of it as like maybe I was doing a third level open house, fourth level open house versus a seventh level open house. If you guys have ever heard of that concept of like, okay,
Yeah, do you want to tell the viewers?
sure, like you could do an open house and you could show up and you could be there on that Sunday and not really be all that prepared and not have talked to the neighbors and not have door knocked and not have marketed properly online, but you could be there, right? And that might be level one or level two open house. But every time you stack a different level of effort, you go one level up. So you might say, okay, great, let me door knock that. Now you've gone up one level. Maybe I'm going to do social media posts and go live, and that would be going up another level. I'll have a taco truck and party and invite all the neighbors, and that might be like seventh level, right? So for a long time, we ran our investment groups at what I would say is like a level three or level four, right? And my business partner and I would turn to each other and say, "Shoot, we got a meeting tomorrow." Right. And now we always had the meetings pre-planned because we had set a definite structure of what the life cycle of a real estate investor's life would look like. And so we'd created a curriculum, but we were always kind of last second saying, "Oh, we got a meeting tomorrow. There's 60 people registered." And so even though we were doing this, by the way, at like a three or four levels, like we would have 50, 60, 70 people in the room, right? Um, and then what happened was one day I looked up and said, the majority of all the business I have is coming from this group. I spend all this time, doing all these other kind of events and spend all this money on Zillow and Facebook and Realtor. And yet when I look at the return on relationships from people in that room, it's astronomically better, right? Like not even like night and day better, right?
Dude, I can totally relate. Like I track my numbers. I've been an agent for 12 years, and I over time we keep track on this spreadsheet called CTE, and we're able to see what where our clients came from and how long it took for first initial contact, when we closed, and what lead sources they come from. And over time, almost everything is like from these REI groups, almost all of it. And we're able to just be comfortable to just cut the budgets on everything else. Because running an REI group costs us, we give away a book every month, 15 bucks. And we ask for reviews on Google in order to earn that book. And then we do a little drawing at the end of each. So that's 15 bucks per meeting. And then we buy some cookies, and that's about it. I think we spend $5 on cookies, maybe 15. I don't buy them anymore. Somebody else.
It sounds like you need to level up your podcast,
I
Nick, because
know.
Rob's over here like doing taco trucks and stuff. I'm like, dude, I want to go to your REIs now.
Well, let me answer the original question, right? The original question was like, why did I decide to even do it in the first place, right? And I remember a conversation I had with somebody that had been in the business for a while, and they said, in order to really create predictability in your income, you need to have a great database. And I remember thinking, okay, well, what kind of database? I already knew a lot of people. I'd been an executive recruiter for 7 years prior, so I had a pretty large sphere. But I loved investing, and I was like, how could I lead with value? How could I create an environment where every month, instead of me chasing 100 people, 100 people would come to me. And because I had, Nick, invested quite heavily, I would say maybe up until that point, it might have been like 7 years, but it was 3 years full time, just purely on the investment side, like making lots of mistakes. Um, buying 25 to 30 houses a year, managing over 300 assets. Like I felt like I had learned a lot, enough to be dangerous in order to kind of share with people what to do, what not to do. And really, I never considered myself a guru. I was like, I just want to facilitate a conversation around a topic and bring people together talking about something that I absolutely love, which is creating financial freedom through real estate, right? And and I think that just having that love and that passion for it, and every month I would do it, that that group just grew, right? And I looked up, a decade later, because it's been a long time, right? I looked up a decade later, our team did like 180 million in volume. We have a property management arm. We have a construction business. We have a funding business. We have a home buying business, and all of them originated because of the group. They all grew from the group, right? And
It's where your network is your net worth.
that's it. And the more than 50% of my team all came from the group.
Same here.
Yeah, and so I was like, why am I spending all this money on all these other things, right? And and what happened was, um, I started having people approach me maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, and they said, Rob, you run this cool group, but can you run one in Baltimore? Can you run one in Richmond, right? And I was like, I'm one guy, I can't duplicate myself. And then I looked at the CrossFit model, I looked at the licensing model, and I said, why don't we just license what we do to other Nicks out there, right? And show you exactly how to do this. And we rebranded everything under the Grid, right? Brand logo. People can go to gridinvestor.com to go check that out. And so today we have 30,000 members. We have 40 different community leaders around the country. We want to get to 100 by the end of next year. And to me, this is an incredible lead source, right? To build a business, not only for your agent business, but also to build wealth in that process. And so, um, I'm now all in, Nick, for the first time in Germany. I'm all in for the first time, and really all in was only 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So it took you 13 years to go all in after you realized you were already all in.
Yeah, it was almost kind of like, this is it was so weird because yeah, I'm really slow to be like, hey, I was trying to replicate what everybody else was already doing out there. Like, you see what all the best teams across the world are doing, and you realize that they're doing coach drives and they're doing lots of different things, right? And because we were running hyper local neighborhood teams, I felt like we needed to do the same thing. And we have multiple teams, by the way, right? We're under expansion model, and so I finally looked up and said the only way I ever want to expand is by running agent investment teams. Like that's the only model that I want to expand. And if I'm going to expand that model, then my main lead gen source would be running an REI community as the main pillar. And so that's when I decided to really start going all in.
Cool. So before we deep dive into the expansion part of your business and all that, do you mind if we take a step back and maybe talk to those real estate agents out there listening to this that are intrigued by this, but maybe intimidated because maybe they're just not that experienced with investing? I'd like to throw out, like, I know, Rob, when you started your meetup, you were buying like 20 houses a year or more, right? I had just purchased my second flip. And I was totally intimidated about it. I was afraid of people. I didn't want to speak in public, but I did it anyway because I didn't want to. I knew the math of real estate sales, and I knew I would have to make the equivalent of like 500 phone calls to get 30 people to show up in a room for me to tell them I'm a real estate agent, meet them face to face, and ask for their business. So that gave me the courage to just do it anyway. But what I found was people didn't care that you were only on your second deal. And so I just want to throw that out there to the agents that maybe listen to this and feel like, okay, well, I can't do that until I've done a lot of deals. Would you agree?
100%, because we brought on partners that the requirement is like, we just want you to do have maybe 2 deals in your arsenal, and maybe have worked with some investors. We don't want you to be in the front of the room saying that that you are a guru, right? Like, we're anti-gurus. Like,
Bringing people together.
we're bringing people together. This is about bringing community together, and that you're just facilitating a discussion around a topic, and you could actually bring in subject matter experts. You don't have to be the expert. All you got to do is I try to tell people it's like running a podcast, right? Like, you're just interviewing somebody, and people learn through the course of those questions.
Right. In fact, just for me, like I'm obviously the newest investor here. I've done a couple deals with Nick and a couple without him, but I've only been doing this 1 or 2 years. I can still get up in front of a class and I can teach people exactly what I know, because what I know is a good starting block for somebody else who hasn't even got to that point yet, right? And it's we all learn from each other. Like, I can learn from you guys, they can learn from me, and they can learn from you as well. And it's a cool little system you guys have. So
Yeah. And it's fascinating to see, like, because, like, Jeremy, yeah, even though you say you're not that experienced, but at least you've done something and you're able to, like, get up on a stage and show people what you did. And I've seen it. They were intrigued enough to, like, crowd over you after you were done and ask you questions. Like, and then meet with you later. Okay, he's the expert in HELOCs, so let's
yeah.
go meet up with this guy. It doesn't take a whole lot of experience to just share what you've done.
Yep. As long as you're passionate about it, and just, I wasn't trying to sell anything, and I'm sure you guys aren't either. Rob, I'm sure you don't like sell things. Do you sell things at your events? No?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Same with Nick, right? You guys it's not a selling point. It's a point for people to get together and people to communicate. And when that happens, everybody wins together. So it's really cool.
Yeah. We're just a necessary component in what their overall goal is of doing real estate transactions. And we just happen to be a convenient option. And clearly our team has the experience to be able to help them. And it doesn't take a huge sales pitch for people to want to do business with us. We're already offering all the value of bringing them together with hard money lenders, contractors, title people, insurance agents, you name it. Anybody in the room, you just let everybody have a chance to speak. Try not to be the ultimate authority and expert and center of attention. Anyway, that it's been working for me. But Rob, do you mind deep diving a little bit into when you decided to get into expansion and what that looks like?
Sure, sure. And then I'm happy to deep dive on how we run and structure our grid meetings, because I'd love to know how you run and structure your your meetings as well, Nick. So expansion for us initially, we were one of the first. We did attend the very first class that Gary Keller had on expansion, and when I left that class, I remember thinking, okay, how would we uniquely expand? How would we want to expand? Um, I took one of my business partners with me that had been with, he'd been with me 6 or 7 years, and he was asking, what's my next step in my career? And I said, I think your next step is to run a team, but I don't want you to leave me, right? I want us to do something together. And so let's go to this class on expansion, see what Gary has to say about it. And when we left, it wasn't quite what we had in mind. We walked because at that point in time, the way expansion, Gary kind of taught it, was you just got kind of go find an agent in another market, and then you turn on a lead gen source for them. And I look back now and say, oh, there's a lot of wisdom in that. But we wanted to create partnerships. And so I created a partnership with my partner Matt, where he owned 50% of his entity, and the way that money came to HQ was that 50% of the profit comes up to HQ as revenue to us, right? And so I wanted to have business partners. So when we first started thinking about expansion, it was like, okay, great. What will be our lead gen lever to expand? And at the time, it was about going after and targeting hyper local neighborhoods, because that was very easy to teach an agent. Here's your territory. Here's 2,000 houses. We're going to direct mail them. We're going to call them. We're going to door knock them. We're going to do events for them. We're going to do social media for them. It's a system we call zone. How do you zone a market, right? And so it's taking territory by being hyper focused on, let's say, 2,000 houses, right? Fast forward to today, Matt owns his zone. He crushed it. Like that business I think made 600,000 in profit last year, of which he took half, right, and then half came into HQ's revenue. What we realized during that process was, well, we need a lot of teams for us to make really the money that we want to make. And then the second piece was, and by the way, our first 5 teams were all hyper local neighborhood teams. And then I woke up one day saying, I don't know if that's the kind of team I want to expand, because I don't feel like I have control over that. I don't have control over the lead gen piece of that. I have some control, but really the leader at that local level is really the main conduit for that community, that neighborhood. And I started thinking about what kind of team would I want to expand, and what is authentically me, and what do I do that's unique that other people haven't done. I was like, well, I run this investment group. I do it pretty well. There's probably not a lot of people in the country that run it as effectively as we run it. We've built a brand around it. Why don't we just use that as our main lead gen platform? And so that's what we decided to do, right, Nick? So our first expansion out of our area was in Knoxville, Tennessee. So you can go see the Knoxville team, and they crush the grid playbook, like absolutely crush it. They're putting in, 80 to 100 people in the room every single month. They put 20 properties under contract this past month, right? They are crushing that playbook. And I'm like, okay, it totally works. Now what we need to do is we need to just stamp that all across the country, identifying the types of agents and teams that resonate with us, right? Our playbook isn't for everybody. It's for the person that loves real estate investing, that wants to do wealth building, that believes in building community, and believes in lead generation through events and community, right? We're not a cold calling team, we're not a, you know, there's lots of different ways to play this game.
So I mean, I can relate on so many levels with what you're saying, because our team is not a cold calling team either. And in fact, we actually, it sucks because we're a team of like 8 or 9 people, and we barely put any energy into our real estate sales business, because half of our energy is spent on our own projects and our own investments. But yet we're still one of the top producing teams in the region. And I want so badly to just go back to square one and really do it right. And I've always had this fantasy of having multiple teams, like kind of like a franchise or expansion model, just showing people what I've done. But it's all like, I don't know what's a good way to go identify these kind of people out there in the country, these agents that have this kind of potential and really need something like this as their main source of lead generation. Have you found a good way to? I mean, you said you've got like 40 of them now. How do you find these partners, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't mind you asking. So the 40 partners are not all expansion partners with us. The majority of those are running their own teams, and they just plug into Grid as their lead gen piece, right? And what happens is in every market center or every brokerage, there's probably 2 or 3 of us, Nick, in every market center who really think more investments naturally than traditional, that calls to us for some reason. We grew up wanting to read Rich Dad Poor Dad, or listen to Bigger Pockets, and like we just more bent that way. So when you realize that, then you just create marketing that speaks to that person, right? Do you love real estate investing? Is financial freedom important to you? Are you a real estate agent, right, that really is in love with investing? Then talk to us. Like, we're a team that may be that may help you on your journey. And so they find you, right? The piece is you put the marketing out there where somebody goes, "Oh, that's me." Like, I love investments. I'm more non-traditional than I am traditional, right? And then they raise their hand and say, I want to be part of what you're building. And so for us, Nick, I don't know if this will help anybody that's listening, or even you guys as you go on this journey, but I realized that I look back and say, oh, if I was an agent, what would I need to know early in my journey to get me there faster, right? And and what's the purpose of the game that we're playing? Like, why become an agent? Like, why what is the real purpose of becoming an agent? If you were to ask an agent, like, why are you an agent, right? They'll, well, I like houses, and I want to sell houses, and I want to make money, and but they don't understand the game. The majority of them don't understand the real game. And I'm like, well, shouldn't be the real game be where you create enough earned income to then buy assets to create passive income, right? To fund your life so that you don't have to work for the rest of your life, right?
Go back to what Robert Kiyosaki keeps repeating, even as he's on his deathbed, and
Oh
he
my
says
God.
He's
the
not even
He's a
purpose.
close.
crazy old man now, man.
I know the purpose of all business is to buy real estate. You know, and that's what we that's what we like kind of push on our agents on our team is like the whole point of this, the whole point of you making commissions is to buy real estate, and we want this to be the last job you ever have,
100%.
and we have an incredible team and a very low um, turn ratio, and everybody on our team is investing and they enjoy it and they just don't want to leave.
So one of the things that we do is we try to keep them, like, as I take people through this journey, I call it like the seven levels of wealth. It's like you know level one is about thinking, it's about mindset, it's about grit, it's about understanding the rules of the game. Level two is agents need to create predictable income, right? Like, you got to pay your bills, you got to figure out like you got to do that. So there's got to be a certain level of transactions, whether it's wholesale deals, agent deal, whatever it is, right? And then level three is about, oh well, now you're becoming a business owner, you want the business to start working for you. You want to find the right leverage to get back your time, because if you get really good at level two, creating predictable income, you could find yourself working all the time, right? Because you haven't understood how to create leverage. Level three, like I said, is about leverage, is about P&L, is about learning how to run a business. Level four is about developing cash flow, right? How do you now build businesses that provide you cash flow? How do you buy assets that provide you cash flow? Level five is about leadership, because you're only going to start expanding when you raise your own leadership lid, right? Number six is about scale. How do you start building different types of businesses around your core business? Or, like you said, Nick, how do you find different, how do you franchise what you're doing, right? And then level seven is just impact. How do you create, you know, purpose and profit? And by the way, you're already creating impact, Nick, just by hosting your investment group, right? And so I realized that we've been creating impact for a long time. We could just now do it more purposefully because I have a model to kind of take people through. And that model applies to both an agent and an investor. Same game.
And the funny thing is, like, we've actually helped people start REI groups locally, and they're still doing them. And there's a lot of people that have tried, like, started some sort of a meetup group, and then it doesn't never really last. But the real estate agents that we've helped start in, like, we have this market a couple of ways hours from here in Moscow, and I kind of help them get going. They still do it every month. They get a lot of business from it. We have a guy on our team that lives an hour away, and we've got like a second meetup up in his market. He's been doing it ever since. It's very successful. And when I first started in real estate, the second time around when I moved to Idaho, right after I started my meetup, about 6 months later, I had a gal in Spokane, Washington that I knew that I was friends with start one up, and she's still doing it, and she's a top producer. Um, and it's just incredible. Like it's absolutely proven that it works. Um, so since you are at Keller Williams Realty, that we have this awesome tool called a KPA. Do you use that when you are potentially partnering or letting people plug into your grid to see if that person maybe has the right personality profile to take what you have and I don't know, maybe be loyal with it or see it all the way through? Do you pay attention much to the KPA or do you use that?
I do, but not to launch a grid, right? Like, there's a couple tracks in my world. Like, somebody can come in and launch a grid community, um, and really, what I want to see is that, do they have a heart to help people build something? And do they have some investment experience? And do they see this as a lead gen tool for their business? Like, I'm not going to diss them. I'm not going to KPA them. And normally they're already pretty experienced. They run pretty successful real estate teams, right? But if somebody's going to expand with us, we put them through three really assessments. KPA is one, DISC is the other, and the 5 love languages test is the other one that we have somebody take.
So what are you looking for in those three assessments?
If somebody, what I'm first looking for in the DISC profile, that's the first one, is are they a driver, right? Because this is somebody that's going to launch and grow a business, right? And so I need a D, right? That's going to help kind of drive that business, and that's important. We'll help them with the operational piece of the business. That's why most people want to plug in with us, because we can handle the operations. Here's how you make the sandwich. These are the rules. This is right, like the franchise. This is what it is, right? Typically, Ds have a hard time of building that, so they plug into that, right? But I need somebody that can drive production and somebody that can influence people, right? So that's what I look for there. In the KPA, what I want to see is somebody wired to be a mega agent, right? When you see the job profiles, is somebody wired in that respect? And what is it? What does their KPA say about how they function within a team? Because we want somebody that's a team player. We're a collaborative organization, right? Now, I only put, let's say, 25% kind of weight on the KPA, 25% with the DISC, right? Really what I'm looking for is the life story. Like, I'm looking for a winner, right? I'm looking for an overcomer, and that's important to me. So, Nick, if you were a high school athlete that became a college athlete, that then you ended up running your own little business, and maybe you had hardships along the way and you overcame those hardships, like, those are the people that I want, right, for my organization. And I want somebody now that has a complete love for investing. Like, they want to play that game. And so not only do they have to fit the DISC profile and the KPA, and the 5 love languages is more for me to figure out how to lead them properly, right? Have you ever taken that? Do you know what that is?
I've taken it. It's interesting. You're the first person, Rob, who has actually like implemented that, I think, into a business that I've heard of. A lot of people, they just take it for fun. Like, oh, what do you like? Do you like compliments or do you like gifts or what? Right?
Yeah. So this was eye-opening to me when, and by the way, there's now assessments for like the 5 love languages for business, right? But when we initially did it, it was because I was actually going through a rocky time in my marriage, right? I've been married 22 years, and I think when we hit like year 10, we hit some rockiness because I was obsessed with the business. I was working all the time. And
I can relate.
Yep.
and my wife essentially was like, "Hey, I'm not happy." Right. And I started doing all this self-reflecting and reading and, trying to figure out things. And I realized that her love language was quality time. And I realized that the one that I was worst at was quality time. Right. I was the worst at it. I was really good at compliments, like giving her compliments, and really good at physical touch. Those were my two, but like physical touch and compliments. Oh, you're the best. I love you. Good job. Attaboys. All that.
Affirmations is what that's called, I believe.
Yeah, affirmations. Right. But I was really bad in spending present time. And when I read that, and then after running teams for a long time, I realized that there was people that would come into my world that needed quality time, and that I oftentimes those were the people that were really good in my world, but then they would break, like I would break them because I'm always driving for the future. And so I had to implement that so that I could uncover who were my quality time people, so that I could take a step back and spend time with those people because they were important to me. I was wired to just always be thinking.
So you use it as a tool to more cater to the needs of your agents, not necessarily to qualify or disqualify someone.
Correct.
That makes sense. That's pretty strategic That's something I can use.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. So, can you give people an idea how much money do you invest in these meetups? How hard are they to coordinate or at least start up? And what can people anticipate? I mean, hopefully you don't mind giving away secrets here because people usually don't implement them anyway.
Yeah, there's no secret.
We can give away secrets, and then people typically just want to buy the implementation.
I can tell you how to make $1 million and nobody will listen, right? Like,
So, can we just give away all our secrets here, if you don't mind? Give away the meat and see who takes advantage.
Sure, I'm happy to do it. Um,
How do we start one up?
well, the way we started it is you go to the basic way that we did it was we went to the Meetup platform. You don't need to use the Meetup platform, but we went to the Meetup platform. That costs like $40 a month or something insignificant, and and you could post your first meeting, right? Now, where most people fail is that they don't plan all their meetings in advance. So one of the things that I did was I planned all my meetings in advance, and I created a curriculum around what the full life cycle of a real estate investor's life would look like. Everything from like wholesaling to being the bank at the end of the year, and then everything in between. And I kind of said, okay, well, you would need to know this concept of wholesaling because that's part of the game. You need to know what that game is in our world, right? And then that means that you would need to know then how to value an asset, like what's the ARV, what's the repair cost, what's the acquisition cost, what's your whole, right? So then we're going to do the next month, we'll do like how to estimate repairs, right? And then we'll do like how to actually negotiate with a seller. And then we'll do like how to buy and hold and burr, right? And so we just kind of built a whole curriculum out. And every year we might swap 2 or 3 out depending on like what might be a good topic. So sub twos.
But you plan the whole year out.
The whole year is planned. Everything's already built.
So we have this problem. Sometimes we're a couple months ahead. Sometimes we're like, okay, the meeting's in 2 days. What are we doing? We got to send out an email.
Yep.
We had one of those recently.
Basically the same curriculum for since 2007. It's like 80%, 90% the same curriculum every year, right? Because the fundamentals are the fundamentals. It's like this is the business. And so we just put that on auto play, and then we don't have to worry about it, right? Now, we've become a little bit more sophisticated since then. So before we would just let the system do its thing. We would then send out one email right before the meeting, kind of like you, Nick. Oh, we're going to send out an email, right?
Probably put it on Facebook too.
Yeah, put it on Facebook, right? And then what would happen is we would get like 20 or 30 people in the room, and we're good. But today we have a whole playbook, right? It's like, okay.
Can I pause you there, Rob?
Sure.
Without doing a meetup, how difficult is it for the average real estate agent out there to meet with face-to-face 20 or 30 people in 1 month and let them know that they're a real estate agent, and actually that other person is giving them a volunteered attention?
Yeah, it's so hard.
It's hard as hell, right? But doing a meetup, like doing just the absolute minimum basics, we send out an email, we put it on this, you're probably going to get 20 or 30 people that are going to show up that want to talk to an agent. They want to buy multiple houses a year, and they want to give you their attention, and it's everything that an agent really wants, but for some reason, they just don't do things like this.
They decide to do the hard pick up the phone, go door knock.
They pay realtor.com, or they pay Zillow for shit leads. And they're competing with 90% of the agents out there for these people that hate realtors anyway.
Dude, it took me 10 years to be like, what am I doing? Like, I'm making all this money from running this investment group, and I'm spending tens of thousands of dollars every single month, right, on all this other stuff. I was like, no. Let's just focus on building community.
Yeah. So if a real estate agent out there can at least hear that one part, even if you do the bare minimum and hardly get anybody to show up, 20, 30 people, you're way outperforming other agents out there by a long shot.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, continue. Sorry to interrupt.
And then okay, so then doing it on purpose. So I got two of my business partners in Grid came from my investment group. the original one that I was running. And through the years, Mark then ran our acquisition construction arm, and then eventually became my partner within Grid. And then Jessica was one of those agents that came to our market center, who was like, she didn't know where she fit. She didn't want to be a traditional agent, and she really loved investments, and she was kind of playing this hybrid role. And at the time, I didn't have this model. Remember, guys, I was just kind of like a traditional agent in my mind that had this investment thing that I love to do, and I just did it because I loved it. It wasn't like a model, right? And it wasn't intentional from the beginning. And I told her, hey, you should just become an agent investor. And she's like, well, what's that? I'm like, well, you should target landlords and absentee owners and work with investors and builders and developers. And like, that should be your niche. You should focus on that. I told her that like 8 or 9 years ago, right? And because again, I was playing that game, but it was not purposeful, right? It was like I was also doing kind of like all the other stuff. Well, she ends up becoming my partner in Grid, and she's a marketer. She's a brander. So all the branding you see around what we do with Grid, like that's all her, right? And she's amazing. And she's like, you guys need to execute this at a 7th level. So every leader across the country, including you guys, you need to have a checklist, right? It's like, okay, you're going to promote it on Facebook. You're going to make sure that the email goes out on the 1st. You're going to make sure that the email goes out on the 15th. You're going to make sure that you have invited a guest. You're going to make sure that your partners are and sponsors are actually promoting it as well. You're going to make sure that you have food that's there. You're going to have a great camera quality that's there. And by the way, we suck at the camera, like streaming thing, like absolutely suck at it so bad. Knoxville, our Knoxville team, like guys, go look up Grid Knoxville and join they've got a Facebook group as well, right? And they absolutely crush the media game. And this is what's so cool about collaboration. I'm like, how the hell did you guys create this thing? It looks like real live TV, right? And what happened was, through their network and through their connections, they brought somebody in to record it, like stream it live and make it so that like when you talk in the audience, the camera goes and pans to you, and like when it's ridiculous, right? And so one of the things that we decided we're going to do is figure out a way to roll this out to every leader across the country, because one of the things that you do when you start doing this at a 7th level is that all that content's recorded, and then you chop it up and you create reels and you push it out on your Facebook, and it creates your brand, right? And it just is like this self-perpetuating thing. It makes your grow exponentially, which builds your brand, which brings more deals, which expands your influence. Like, and so it's like, holy, like,
Nick, I hope you're listening, by the way.
I'm taking notes.
I've been telling you this for years.
yeah. So if you execute this at a really high level like that, then you build your personal brand, right? You're already doing it at like kind of like at a small level, but you can really blow it up. And so it took a couple of our partners from around the country to show us how we could do it in our group. Like my group in Reston has 4,500 people in it, right? Olive Grid's got like 30,000 people in it. Well, we started having partners in like Orlando and in California and other areas, and we're seeing what they're doing, and we're like, guys, we're the OGs, and we're not keeping up. Like, we got to keep up.
We're getting outperformed here.
We're getting outperformed, right?
Isn't it crazy how once in a while people on your team can just start overtaking and put you to
Which
shame?
is fantastic.
Oh,
It's,
yeah.
it's the best thing ever.
So then what happened was, and what we still teach is, if you get a 7th level this, you can host a great meeting and you could brand it really well and you could push it out, but are you good at the conversion piece of that? And there's the follow-up piece. Are you inviting people out for cups of coffee? Are you getting to learn more about what they want to build and what they want to do? Are you inviting them to other events that you might be hosting, right? So it's like, how do you present properly during the meeting to get people to bring you stuff? How do you actually follow up with them afterwards, right? And how do you create a real community, like a real community where people like want you to win, right?
So give us an example of how would an agent follow up with somebody that attended their meeting? Let's say they're brand new at this. They just had their first meeting. They had 15 people show up. it wasn't as much of a success as they thought, but 15 people show up.
I
They
had
got
four
names.
people. I had 4 people in my first meeting. 4 people. Yeah.
So don't expect, right out of the gate much to come from it, but it will build over time.
Especially if you're consistent, by the way.
They want to call these people, the next day or so, right? Maybe invite them to coffee. What do they do from there? Do they just call? Do they say, "Hey, I just want to meet up and see how we can help each other grow our businesses? I want to see what I can do to help you out. Let's have coffee." Like it's not a hard date to push, right? What's in it for them? Ooh,
Right. So what you want to do is I would call you and say, hey Nick, thanks so much for coming to the event last night. Hopefully you got some value out of it. Man, I was fascinated with the fact that you bought that first investment and sterling. Man, I'd love to sit down, grab a cup of coffee, figure out more about what you want to build over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and see how I might be able to kind of help plug into some of those things that you want to build. Would you be open for a cup of coffee?
yeah. Not many people say no.
Nobody says no.
Yeah, everyone
Nobody
wants to
says
talk
no.
about themselves. I love it.
But if you were so for the agents out there listening who have been a real estate agent for, at least more than a few months, try doing that to your average buyer or seller. Hey, would you like to meet up for coffee so we can talk about how I can help sell you a house or help sell your house? They're just, I got to take the kids to school. Don't talk to me right now. You're not an essential part of their life. But if they're an investor, in my experience, it is in their best interest to meet with you, and they recognize that.
Well, I was going to say, I realized after some time that um, I am their wealth determiner and they're mine, right? Because what happened was through, now being able to look at this, through the lens of 15 years, which is kind of crazy to say, um, I own portfolios of properties with people that came from that group. And I help bring those deals to them and they help fund those deals. And so I'm a wealth determiner for them and they became a wealth determiner for me. And 100% they don't view me as a real estate agent. They view me as a real estate financial advisor or planner, right? And so the relationship's different. It's a different relationship. And so if I just call you, Nick, and say, hey man, I'd love to learn more about what you're looking to build, see if we can help you build it. You would say, absolutely. Help me build it.
I'm available whenever you are. Yeah.
And there's a difference in presentation there, like you were saying, Rob. Like obviously it's what's in it for them. If a real estate agent calls someone and says like, hey, how can I help you buy a house or how can I sell you a house? It's about that real estate agent. It's not about the client at that point. When you're saying like, I love what you do, I'd love to learn more, and just the way you position that, like, yeah, of course people want to talk about themselves and they want to share it because everybody loves sharing what they're doing, especially if it's working and it's gathering attention of, high income producers. So
100%.
So, what do you recommend for the agents that may be intimidated working with investors?
That's all mind garbage in your head. Here's what I would recommend. This is like a selfish pitch, and I'm sorry, right? I think people have all this mental garbage around investing. They're like, oh, I'll invest when, or I'm not as good as, like they somehow put themselves in this hierarchy of the investor is above me and I'm below them, right? No, 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 no. It's actually flipped, right? And, but you just need to learn that language. And by the way, the language is really easy to learn. It's not difficult to learn. It's just you learn the contract, you learned, you know, the traditional way of playing the game. Now what you need to do is complete your training and learn the investment side of the game, right? So we realized that agents were missing this language and were missing this other side of their training, like to complete your Jedi training kind of thing. And so we created what was called Grid AI certification, right? So Grid Agent Investor certification. It was really to take agents on a path to become an investor and to then learn how to work with investors. We've since rebranded it to the income flip, right? Where we help people within our community flip their earned income into passive income, and then we have modules that break out specifically for agents, so income flip for agents. Um, But really, it's a way for agents to learn how to become the investor, to then to take people on that journey, because it's really hard to take somebody on that journey unless you go on the journey yourself, right? So, for example, Nick, you did one or two deals first.
Yeah, I was on my second deal when I started my meetup.
That's right. And so you felt like you had learned a couple things. You'd probably listened to lots of podcasts. You'd probably read lots of books.
I was obsessed.
Yeah, you're obsessed. There was like lots of fear in the beginning around maybe possibly pulling the trigger, but you overcame it. You did it. You survived. You didn't die. You realized you made some money. You're like, this is a good thing. Like, and you kept doing it. And then you were like, oh, I'd love to pay this, forward, and let's run a group and let's talk about this. So I think agents need to just get in and start becoming obsessed. And by the way, become obsessed not to learn how to work with investors. Become obsessed to learn how to become the investor, and by default, you will learn how to work with investors.
Yeah, you'll be able to help them maybe see things they're not seeing. And also I'd have to say too, for the people that are intimidated with maybe working with investors, most investors that you meet that claim that they're an investor, maybe they have one rental or two. Um, and and they don't have the kind of experience you do, even if you have no investments, because you do transactions regularly. And they are not used to doing transactions regularly. Maybe they bought one or two homes. That's your average investor in my experience. And you just got to be comfortable knowing that you are probably more educated than they are in real estate, and just keep your mouth shut and ask questions and listen to what they want.
100%. Did you've watched the movie Catch Me If You Can?
Oh yeah.
Remember,
I
like
concur.
he, yeah, that's right, that's right. That's right. I concur. Remember how he taught a whole college class, and they're like, "How did you teach this class?" He was like, "I was just one chapter ahead." That's it, right? Just stay a chapter ahead.
So, what do you have any other recommendations for it? Maybe, or any agents that are considering this, why maybe they shouldn't do it?
Yeah, I've seen agents start this and fail, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. Who fails? The person that isn't obsessed and love this part of the game, like maybe they shouldn't play this game.
Yeah, if you're not obsessed with real estate, don't do it.
Yeah, if you're not obsessed with like real estate investing or wealth building, then don't do it, because it's not for you. Because this is the tribe could smell a phony, right?
Oh yeah, they can smell everything.
Yeah, yeah, and they know, right? They know, like, oh, this person is in this game like I'm in this game, right? So that would be number one. Number two is, you said it, Jeremy. It's consistency. Like, you've got to be consistent. Like, we've never missed a meeting. Like, people end up becoming like they rely on the meeting, right? And this is actually a community lead generation platform when you think of it. That's what this is, right? There's a great book, by the way. You might want to read it, Nick. It's called The Business of Belonging.
The business of belonging.
Of belonging. And it talks about this. And like, literally, I'm like, oh yeah, these are all the things we do. This is exactly what we've built, right? And we realize that large corporations have been building communities within their tech platforms and within their businesses to keep people engaged, to build more business, to engage and create more business. And so community is an essential part of lead generation. But a lot of people decide to be transactional, which is what the agent that you're describing, Nick, versus transformational, right? Transformational is a community builder. Transactional is a traditional agent that's just like helping people buy and sell houses, right? So unless you're willing to kind of go on that investment journey, like I wouldn't do it. You got to love that. Um, one of the things that we do, by the way, is this is a community. So I pour into the community through a Facebook group by empowering them with knowledge and information, tidbits of learning. Every year we hand out like the Deal Monster Award. Like, we get submissions of people that have done deals within our community. And then what happens is we pick the best deal of the year, and we have a big party at the end of the year, and we like have like an awards banquet, and we're like, okay, and we typically talk about like runner up, like number 3 and number 2, and then number 1 is they get the deal monster, and their name goes on the plaque, and we make a big deal out of it, right? And so it's just part of the community.
Yeah. Hey, so do you, for the people that join your meetings or show up, do they have to pay anything to get in the door?
No, we've tested that. We didn't, and then we did, and then we didn't, right?
Do you
And
have different levels of membership?
So one of the things that we're in the process of doing is that it will be free for people to come in to any of the meetings across the country, but then we'll have a back end membership platform where people for $19.95 a month or whatever the number we decide it to be will be able to join that and join the conversation there. So we will turn on a membership platform piece to this, but we haven't yet. Like we've we haven't yet. I'll just leave it there. Yeah. We built something out years ago. We didn't execute it very well, and we're like, okay, we need to 2.0 this and really execute it well. Right.
Because I remember when I first started the meeting, there was one other guy in our region that was doing it, and he wasn't an agent. He was just an investor in across the state line in Spokane, Washington. And he told me, he's like, yeah, you should really be charging people at the door. He's like, people don't appreciate what they get for free. And that was one thing he really recommended I do, but I didn't do it. And I don't feel like people don't appreciate it.
Yeah. What I normally tell people, and this is my little speech in the beginning, right? The way our format works is it 30 minutes of intros. So I let everybody kind of do like a quick elevator pitch, right? Even like, and then what happens is we tell everybody we're going to talk on a topic for about an hour, but the real power is in the networking and building relationships. And the reason why we pour into you guys is because and this is free is because we want to do deals with you. Like we make no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like we want to do deals with you, right? So we will help fund your deals because we have a private lending arm. We want to bring you deals. We want to buy deals from you. So we're deal makers, which is why we do this. Nobody's selling you any books and tapes in the back of the room. We're here doing deals at the local level, and we want to do deals, right?
I got some final questions if you guys are kind of done, but I wanted to kind of just talk on your meetings real quick and, the free versus paid. Like, perceived value is a thing, right? Obviously, these people, when they come to your events, they're not spending any money, but what they are getting out of this is they are getting, access to your networks. They are getting the ability to network with all these people and to just talk to high-level individuals doing this. That is the perceived value, right? And it's hard because like you just hear, Alex Hormozy, he just gave away his whole huge course or whatever for free. Everyone I know is still talking about that, and there was nothing he was trying to sell. He's just like, I don't know, here you go, guys. And it was mind blowing.
Well, I think he does a really good job of telling people why he's doing it, because he is saying, I am trying to sell you something, but you're not, most of you aren't there yet. I want to partner with you when you're over $1 million a year. And he keeps stressing that almost in every video or something like that. So he's got a pretty good reason to give things away for free.
Oh yeah, everybody has a motive, obviously, but it's interesting, like I said, that perceived value. You don't need to charge in order to have it come back tenfold at your meetings. So
what's so crazy is that like I was on that webinar, and so my team members were on that webinar, and I was ready to whip out a credit card.
I had my debit card in my hand.
Okay. And by the way, so were my business partners, right? And literally when he was like it was free, one of my business partners cried. Right? Like he was like, "Oh my God," because it was just like, here's this guy giving so much value. So he built it up. It's so big, and then he's like, I just want to give it away so that you guys can go build businesses, so that Nick, we can then partner with each other at some point. Right, when you get to over $3 million, then I'll take you from $3 million to $30 million.
It was fantastic, and I remember
all
like
those people that went crazy on his webinar. Probably 80-90% of them never logged in to start his courses or anything.
But
Sure.
like I was anticipating, honestly, like, because I've done the Grant Cardone course and I've done the Pace Morby course and everything like that. I'm like, he's gonna charge, you know, $9.99 or $9.97 or something like that. That was my, and I'm like, I'll pay it. Honestly, it's worth it. And then it was free, and I'm like, you've literally got to be kidding me. It was insane. So, Nick, do you have any final thoughts before we kind of get down to the closing questions?
Honestly, Rob, I can take 8 hours of your time if you'd like, but I'm sure we got to get going here soon.
It's all good, man.
Yeah, we'll have to get you on again for sure, because I actually want to get down into your investing history as well, not just your agent investor seminars. So, Rob, at the end of this, first of all, thank you again so much for joining us on this podcast. I've learned a lot, and it's really cool watching you guys riff off each other, and you know, how we can all grow together on that. We got some predetermined questions we kind of ask at the end. The first question is, if you have one business or investing book you recommend every single person read, what would that be?
The Psychology of Money is yeah. So it's more about how we think and how we react emotionally to money. It's really hard to be an investor unless you can control how you think about money, right? And emotionally what money means to you, right? Because you can learn the tactics, but if you are from your upbringing, if you had some like self-limiting beliefs, or if you've got this unhealthy relationship with money, you make it but then you spend it, right, just as fast because of whatever, like you won't move ahead, right? So I think the Psychology of Money is one. Profit along those lines. Another one is Profit First, which is not an investment book, but it's a book about how to control money, right? Would be another great one on that. And then there's like lots of books on like tactically how to get into the weeds, right? Like,
And I think at the end of the day, it just matters, you know, you can read all these books, you can read 100 books a year, and if you're not taking action on any of those books, like, don't even read them, to be honest with you. Like, read to learn, read to implement.
yeah, one of the really good ones that I read, right? You don't have it on your wall. You've got the blue book, but the green book, the flip book is a really, really, like when I read the flip book, and I'd taken lots of training and lots of course, I was like, oh, this book's got it all. Like, yeah, this flip book is really good.
You know what I did once? The first year I was doing the meetups, I did these little field trips once in a while on some of the newer flips that I was buying, and I would say, "Hey, if you guys want to come," I think it was like the day after the main meetup, "come check out one of my flips." And I brought like print offs from that green book, and it was actually super helpful to be able to like show up. This is why I did this, and this is why I did this. But that's a book that doesn't get any shout outs.
None, none, none. It's like I think you have to really be in the game and have read it and be like, oh, that's truth. There's truth in that book, right?
I got to reread that because I've been losing too much money lately.
All right, next question for you, Rob. If you had $30 million gifted to one of your bank accounts, what's the first thing you'd spend it on?
That's so funny. We had this question. We do a Wealth Wednesday every morning at 8:30 with my team, and it wasn't $30 million. It was like, hey, if you had $500,000, like what would you do? So the question is 30 million. What's the first thing I would do? First thing I would do is my parents are 80. And when I was younger, I lived in Australia, and we have really fond memories, and they've wanted to go back. So I'd probably take 30, 40, $50,000 of that $30 million, right? And we would go and have a family trip and spend a 1 month or 2 months spending time with family in traveling, reminiscing through Australia, right? So that's what I would do. What I've realized as I get older is that it's relationships and it's family, and it's the little things that bring me the most joy. Um, the dollar is just a game.
It's also just a vehicle to get there, right? It's not like, the money's the nice, but what we all want at the end of the day is time, and we want it to spend it how we want to. And the best way to do it is to have a vehicle to get there. So
Sure, sure. So if I had 30 million, I just let it sit in a great interest bearing account, right? And
easy. Yep. It's interesting how people would spend their money, right? Like, I think it's like, a lot of people talk about, oh, I'd buy my dream car, or, oh, I'd throw it all in investments. Like, you could live off, 10, 5 million comfortably. And then just throw the other in investing and you'd be fine. And your grandkids would be fine.
What we all came down to is ultimately what we all really are little mini banks when you think about it, right? We're a bank. And so if you've got 30 million, be the bank. And you could either lend that out as a private lender to a hard money lender and let them deploy it and earn your 10% and 1 point on it and just do that, right? Or if you want to be more active, kind of like it sounds like maybe some of the stuff you've been doing, Nick, more active, then you just buy those assets and you turn those assets and you're generating 20 to 25% return on that money, right? But it's hard to deploy $30 million on some of those like smaller things.
For sure. Next question for you, Rob. If you had any advice for a newer investor, maybe looking on their first or second deal, what would that be?
Very simple. Drive for dollars, right? Like drive through neighborhoods that you regularly travel through and pay attention this time to the houses that look like they need some work. Write those addresses down, put them into a spreadsheet, then have the discipline to call them, have the discipline to leave a door hanger, and have the discipline to market to them forever, which means put them in a direct mail, some kind of direct mail. There's like amazingmail.com. You could actually just put in the address, you could preset postcards, and you could mail to them forever. And that's what I would do.
I love it. And when you're not investing or running meetups, what do you like to do with your free time?
I have a river house. I go out there with my family. We hang out. I chop down trees. I go canoeing, kayaking. I think. I write. Right.
Spend time building you.
Yeah. I actually what I do is I just recharge because there's so much energy that I put in during the week and creating content and pouring into my team and launching a new division. And sometimes I just on the weekends I just recharge.
I think that's well-deserved for you, too. Last question for you, Rob. Where can people find out more about you or more about your grid investors?
Sure. They can go to robchevez.co. So just my name, Chevez. So robchevez.co. It's kind of like my main site. Or they can go to gridinvestor.com, and they'll see all the different investment groups we've got throughout the country.
I love it.
Is there a particular market that you would love to open another meetup in right now?
No, just looking for the right partners. That's the most important, right? The people that have a passion for building community. I think is the most important piece, right? Like one of the things that I've discovered about the community that we're building is that there's a community of the leaders and then there's a community of the members. So the leaders are their own community where we all learn from each other, right? So I have a team that does $700 million, another team that did 3,000 transactions, right? Like, so you've got some big players and then you've got people that, run teams that might do 50, right? And we're all in there though with the same mission and wanting to help build wealth at the local level, create impact, and we're all learning from each other in that process. So I just look for people that want to do that.
We appreciate your time. If somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the easiest way to get to you?
If they just go to robchevez.co. That's the easiest way.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Jeremy, you want to take us out?
Well, yeah, definitely. Thanks so much again, everybody. If you listened to this episode and you enjoyed what you heard, please leave us a 5-star review. Rob Chevez, thank you so much again for joining us. Nick Beveridge, thanks for being an awesome host as always. And until next time, we will see you later.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you so much for checking out the Investor Shed podcast. If you enjoyed your time, make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow along on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at The Investor Shed for shorts and promos about each episode. Do you want to be a guest or know someone who has great real estate investing advice and stories? Reach out to us at theinvestorshed@gmail.com.